And on the River State matter, where the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, and the Trade Union Congress, TUC, jointly warned President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to put an end to what they described as an assault on democracy following the declaration of a state of emergency in the state. The unions made this known in a statement jointly signed by NLC National President Joe Ajaero and TUC President Festus Osifo. NLC and TUC strongly condemned the proclamation, stating that it was unconstitutional and undemocratic. According to them, the purported removal of the state governor, deputy governor, and House of Assembly members is not only unlawful, but a direct attack on democracy. Joining us for an interview on this subject matter is Pat Obiene. And you're welcome, sir. You've been hanging on. We appreciate you. Hope I got your name correctly, sir.
Yeah, Obiene.
Obiene. Thank you for joining us.
That's right, sir.
NLC and TUC as a union, both unions, are also lending their voices to the numerous Nigerians who are condemning the institution of the emergency rule in Rivers State. Their own concern, their own voice, will it matter? Will it change a thing? Because we heard the hues and cries the other day, yet the president went ahead to inaugurate the sole administrator he appointed. And today, the National Assembly endorsed that state of emergency. Do you think that the cries or the warning at best from NLC and TUC will make the difference?
Well, thank you for having me. And good evening to our viewers and the good people of Enugu State.
Nigeria,
all,
global.
Yes. Are you with me?
Yes, I'm saying that it is not limited to Enugu. You are being watched all over the world.
Nigeria, that's correct. I said the viewers generally, but I particularly wanted to say hi to the good people of Enugu.
Thank you very much.
Yes, so first of all, the voice, we're glad that the voices are rising, more voices, but in practical terms, I doubt if it's going to make any material change, because it's what it is. The crop of leaders, both the Federal Executive Council, the legislators, federal legislators, had confirmed to Nigerians that, first of all, they do not enjoy the required legitimacy of how they all got there. I must put this on record. So, anybody watchers of events unfolding must have that understanding and be more resilient and resolute that come the next election, when is the most, which is the non-violent and proper civilized way to change the government. We all, majority of us, well-meaning Nigerians, those who wish to have the Nigeria of their dream, must be more focused and be willing to sacrifice all, not necessarily, we don't wish that anybody should lose his life, but in a non-violent manner. Non-violent means we need an intellectual revolution. We need people who will stand firm and fair to focus more on the quality of leaders that we have to put in authority. Because that's the best way our voices can make any difference. In the circumstance, I'm afraid that the way it is right now, we may not make any immediate change to the decisions, the unjust, obnoxious, anti-people, undemocratic, unconstitutional decisions that the President Tinubu-led government, had been turning out. Because we now see so much of contradiction, hypocrisy of the highest order, because this is a President Tinubu who doubles as ECOWAS chairman. And we all are witnesses, and even the whole world witnesses how what has unfolded in Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, particularly Niger, we aggressive and angry President Tinubu on the offices of the chairman wanted to invade Niger on this same singular reason that the military boys there had no good reason, regardless whatever may have caused the political instability or social unrest, to truncate democratic structure and values in Niger. We all are witnesses. So it is difficult to fathom, it's still difficult to find the rationale that spite of the circumstance, the political situation in Rivers State, not have necessitated or even meet the conditions to truncate democratic and yet he had gone ahead to do so. For me, in my view, it clearly confirms that, first of all, from the very word, he did not enjoy the popular support. And it is still to keep maintain that unpopular support that he do not enjoy. That is why he has exhibited so much desperation. Because all along, watchers and students of the Nigeria River State political development since 1999, from the early days to the Amechi and former Governor Wike, it has been that many of the presidents depend on River State resources to have their way at the federal level. So you find many at times the political leaders here compromise. So I am afraid that it is to achieve that point why a President Tinubu could come after just the same way his predecessor, former President Buhari, in spite of the Supreme Court pronouncement who had the cash crunch, came out and made his own statements. The Supreme Court came out to say this is an opposition to the Supreme Court, not adhering to the rule of law. So if he is so concerned in keeping with part of the constitutional responsibilities, welfare and security of the people, the situation in Rivers State had not necessitated the moving of an elected government, the both arms of government, the legislature and the executive. In view of the Supreme Court government, he was trying to amplify, which is not his responsibility. He couldn't feign ignorance to say that after the Supreme Court judgment, the governor is even admitted that he made mistakes in the statewide broadcast in Rivers State shortly after the Supreme Court judgment. And if clearly he made efforts and the young men and the Rivers Assembly were trying to put up grandstanding, first of all, let's appreciate and also accept that these young men had shown that they are not acting on the mind of their own. The executive minister, former governor, had clearly shown his interest in the whole political struggle and crisis in Rivers. Now, a fair judge is somebody who wants to intervene. First of all, it's unfortunate, it's even faulty that the intervention the president claims to. It was actually a party. Those who are students of conflict resolution will be quick not to accept that there was nothing fair about that intervention, because obviously he was an interested party. If you go back and look at the incidents what transpired in that what they call the intervention that led to a point agenda, and the remarks President Tinubu made, it clearly points to where his interest lies. And to that extent, that was not even a pointer to peace, to bring about peace or resolution of the crisis. And all along, both they call the legal angle and from this political angle, the blame has always tilted to one side. No reasonable Nigerian, enlightened Nigerian, or even watchers across the world will say that this shows that this president is interested to peacefully resolve the political crisis in Rivers State. Now, assuming let's forgive all the mistakes, now the point from where the Supreme Court gave his judgment and requested the Rivers State governor to go represent the body and recognize these young men as members of the Rivers State Assembly, and the governor was making attempts to reach out. In between that short period, if President Tinubu doesn't have any ulterior motive, or that from the beginning the desire was to achieve this removal of the governor, what was wrong? Was it difficult to have said, look, I'm aware young men parties, this stage is being said to governor, what is going on? The other day I watched how you are locked out of the assembly. What is going on? Young men, why the governor is trying to read, what is wrong? Can you quickly, what was difficult? The same energy he summoned the Senate president, what have you, was it not the same energy he would have also invited? Even though, yes, I agree, the governor didn't reach up here, didn't want to complain, he said that he would, Wike will always influence the president against him. But the president wouldn't feign ignorance that he wasn't aware of all that transpired between February 28th, when the Supreme Court gave that judgment, and the next 1.5 weeks or close to 2 weeks, the efforts, the dramas that were going on between the lawmakers and the governor. And in my view, it was very simple to arrest the situation at that point in the most civilized manner. which is the issue was who was supposed to communication, transmission, and communication, and back and forth argument. That wasn't strong enough to declare a state of emergency because that was exactly the and yet even in spite of that, Rivers State has been peaceful. Rivers State has been peaceful. If you listen to the podcast and hinting on how pipeline was broken, don't we know? In fact, if we go back, the statistics see that the same security operator has to go and secure the pipe. In the last 1 month, there has been intimidating reports of them arresting crude oil thieves, those who vandalized the national assets, and what have you. Everybody knows that. It's on record. Why didn't he declare this emergency on the strength of those reports? They've uncovered illegal refining of crude oil here and there. In fact, now thank God Nigerians are bringing out more evidences if it was a question of state of emergency. Or still just wish the political tussle between his party and others, over 8 people died, including the certain local government chairman. And yet that being warranted state of emergency, which is even clearly a good, that is a human life. Yeah, you're talking of economic commodity. So clearly, if you make those comparisons and considerations, it tells you that everybody understands where the interest lies, is to hijack the economic strength of the state by any means necessary, including removing of duly elected democratic government, like he was elected. So
let's go back
a whole lot of contradiction,
let's go
a
back.
whole lot of contradiction and paradox in the person of President Tinubu that is probating and reprobating. He has no regard for the rule of law. I have told people who care to listen that rule of law is not only when the regular constitutional judgments and parties expected to be. It actually is seen made manifest in the day-to-day administrative regulation between organs of government, departments of government, ministries, of those in authority and citizens. The ability to adhere to simple regulations and administrative values. That is even where the rule of law starts. So if now, where is it in our law books that the Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you have over 42 of them, will be manifestly trying to gain control. And as issued, we have regulations that talk about hate speech. We see a minister making statements, inciting statements, incriminating statements, and the president tolerates that. Now, out of all the ministers, he alone wants to have control in Rivers State. I also want to have control in Abuja. Is that not enough state of emergency? Is that not enough state of emergency? Is that not an aberration?
But probably as we move on,
yes.
Most of these things will crop up again. But let's return to the warning issued by the organized labor. And let's see if we can establish what may work, because you said probably what their own voice could be heard, or even not. In the past, when other presidents declared state of emergency elsewhere in Nigeria, Tinubu stood against it before he became the president, and he adopted strategy, a measure. What measure do you think the organized labor will adopt this time around to make their own voice heard? You know, when you won, it is expected that there's going to be a punitive measure, sort of. If you're not going to adhere to their warning, this will happen. Is it going to be jaw now, or kind of protest, or even a strike? What do you think will work this time?
You see, I'm afraid, with due respect to the leadership of the NLC, if you follow their trajectory in the last couple of years, since under this dispensation, they haven't been able to give Nigerians the confidence the NLC and TUC we used to see under the days of Oshumele. We must point out that fact. We've seen the way they've been parrying since the subsidy incident. They've not been able to stand firm in any of their resolutions. It has been back and forth. So that lack of Nigerians appear not to have so much confidence in them, except this one is one among many that will, restore back their dignity and their extraordinary courage to mobilize Nigerians. It's not a one-off thing. Last time, even when in recent past, since the back and forth surrounding the subsidy problems, I had given them free consultation to say, if the oppressor in quote, the federal government and the authorities have been able to succeed in divine what have you, let them come back to the drawing board and make it the struggle of the Nigerian people against the few in authority. That is the one strategy that can make, give effect to whatever position they might take. So the strike, in my view, the authorities have been able to manipulate them as we speak. They've been divided more than ever, for exactly the way the Labour Party is manipulated in relation to NLC as a labor organ or pressure group. So all that needs to, those loose ends need to be tied. It's not just coming out make a one-off remark or propose. No, they need to go back and ensure that all critical stakeholders, all professional groups, those who are members of NLC, who are not members of TUC, must be part of this struggle. And this is my free consultation. That is, I'm trying to answer your question directly. That is, if they can make any difference, that will be the only strategy. If it requires taking the next 3 months to do this mobilization and sensitization, and let everybody have sufficient understanding that if we must shut down the economy, let it be everybody, pilots, no plane must fly. Go to the authorities, if you don't have any flight, no vessel moving, let's all remain here. So if they be able to pull to that extent where great faith-based group, churches, all these churches that have multiple branches and hundreds of members who are also victims of the Nigerian economy, we all must agree and say, this is unacceptable. This is not what our forebears lived and died for. If democracy was hard, there was a struggle, a tough struggle to bring back this democracy. Tinubu, that's why I say, is full of contradiction. Who was known to be part of those who now will be guilty of the same thing he hated yesterday. Today he's celebrating it. And we can no longer accept it. The same thing like Zuma did in South Africa. We saw it. Zuma spent 10 years with Mandela in prison. At the point he started deranging from those core values, we saw what happened. The same party, his own party, jailed him. We saw his prison uniform. So NLC and TUC, if they want us to take them seriously, they shouldn't be the same trying to take opportunity of this nation to say, okay, let's issue our irregular threats. They are our friends. They will call us for meeting. Nigerians will think we are serious. Let them usually give us our brand envelopes and we'll go back. We know Nigerians, how docile they are. They won't bother to ask us what is the outcome of all this threat. We are used to that already. So except this time around, if they are true Democrats, if there are people who believe in the Nigeria of their dream, it is not about a one-off comment or going to say they've invited them for meeting because they issue threat of strike. They need to spend some time, go around and meet all, including particularly faith-based organizations, traditional leaders. Let us all take a position. I don't know if we can have a 97, if possible 80% over 20, we will be making progress. But if they just think they can stand alone as NLC and PAC, I am afraid the authorities have seen their weaknesses. They have all the weapons to manipulate and divide and rule them. So that's, if you ask me, that is everything that can make the difference.
All right, Pat, I don't know if they want to push this. Do you think the kind of tactics adopted the other time when the organized level was pushing? In fact, it was majorly on the NLPC because I did not understand what happened. There was some sort of disparity between what TUC stood for at the time and what NLC was for at the time. And after a while, the hits came more on Joe Ajaero, the NLC president, national president, where he was accused, arrested, incarcerated at the time. And my point here is, do you think that if they push it further than the authorities are willing to take, that there will be attempt to shut him up or shut them up, as the case may be?
No, yes, it is for this year. If you listen carefully, if you have listened to me carefully, I did point out that the strategy that, after a recent past, since you'll be legend, the labor, but there are two things. The authorities now see NLC, right, as an offshoot of the Labour Party as an opposition political party. That is why the struggle. There is some peculiarities during the Shumule time when the Labour Party wasn't loud and had clearly made a public statement to be a viable opposition party. But the P2B syndrome now threatens the authority to say anything NLC attempts to do. The suspicion, listen carefully, the suspicion is that it is sponsored by the Labour Party. That is why Ajere is having the kind of experience he's having and being bold. So that's why I said this time around, they need to come back to the drawing board. Now, having realized that the authorities perceive them in that way, and therefore wouldn't want to respect that like NLC as a separate entity. So they should come back and make it a struggle of the Nigerian people. In other words, at every material time down issue statement, Joe Ajero shouldn't be just the one talking. We should have perhaps very notable clergymen who lead the faith-based groups, because we're all victims. The way it stands now, we're all victims, not just members of NLC and TUC. That is it, because I believe strongly as a student of, intellectual revolution, that injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. Suffering anywhere is suffering everywhere. Insecurity anywhere is insecurity everywhere. If we go with that understanding, then NLC wouldn't just front themselves as we, NLC, because the authorities are already used to how they can manipulate them. But if they come back inside and form a formidable forge steel with all that figures that are in the front burner, the authorities begin to see that you have very, credible clergymen in front standing side by side. You have very credible professional leaders from various critical professional groups. Then they will begin to have a rethink. To say, look, it's not like what we think that it's about Labour Party and the NLC. We can see now that it is truly the people of Nigeria that is coming against us, or that is asking this question, or that is making this. So these are things some of us should be concerned, but I'm leaving it free for the sake of the next generation. Because great men all over the world are more concerned about the next generation, not the next election. It's only in Nigeria where gullible people think that great people means those who are thinking about the next election. So there is need to fine-tune the strategy, emphasis, the strategy, not just NLC, under Ajere's leadership, no. So that the personality of Ajere is not too loud. But that when the authority look, they will be amazed to see that people they don't expect are the ones who actually is galvanizing and, in collaboration with the NLC. Because that's one mistake. Even in the road to freedom, there's the theory that the hero doesn't stand alone. So if Ajere thinks that circumstances and conditions are like when the days of Oshumole, he may be telling himself a lie and he's making very grave mistake. The circumstances are not the same right now as it was under Oshumole's leadership. So those who say, we miss the days, no, it's not. Even then, even somebody with a military background, we saw some level of tolerance, and Falana will always be physical. When they come to arrest Oshumole, he will be physical, dragging Oshumole away from them at the airport and things like we saw those things. But the circumstances are not the same now. Now you had more of the political class have been able to penetrate the labor unions and been able to divide them across political party lines. Fear that any demand the NLC makes is traced to protecting the interest of Labour Party as a viable opposition party. We must have that understanding. So as many that we are close to them, if we want to assist them, they shouldn't just hastily come out with what they think is possible. They need to spend more time strategizing and collaborating and having deliberations with critical stakeholders and fine-tune the best of effective strategy. For me, like I said, right now, it is overdue to petition the ECOWAS, because we need to start petitioning Sovereign government.
Who will initiate that process?
The man who is guilty, who
has
can
initiate that process?
River State, is guilty of. It is one strategy that the NRC and TUC can mobilize the rest of us, and we all put our signatures to that petition.
Okay.
So that world leaders can begin. These are part of non-violent strategies that can bend the hand of President Tinubu to realize that for where we don't understand, it's difficult to accept that whatever he represents, all that makes him Tinubu like we used to know. It's totally strange that we are seeing a strange Tinubu, and therefore we want to find out where this strange reason and influence is coming from.
Okay.
To be guilty
Thank you very
of the
much.
same things that he has fought against.
Thank you very much. Our time is actually up.
To understand, yes.
Thank you, Pat, for joining us. For lending voice to our subject matter this evening on Signature Evening. Thank you.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.